Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how to use the Multi-Gem Prong tool that comes with the jewelry kit that I make for Rhino. To open the Multi-Gem Prong tool, you click on its icon right here. The Multi-Gem Prong window has four main sections. The top section, which has the mode and in-prong method, which I'll go over later in the video. The second section, which I consider to have the main settings that you'll use almost every time that you use the tool. The third section, which has settings that you will probably use only occasionally. And then the fourth section, which is kind of a miscellaneous section. It has settings like the prong/lines dropdown and the flip prongs checkbox. And we'll be going over all of these in the video, of course. The Multi-Gem Prong tool has three modes: basic, tapered, and list. The only difference between these three modes is the size control. The basic mode has a single slider to control the prong sizes. The tapered mode has two sliders, one for the start size and one for the end size. And then the list mode has a text box where you can enter a list of prong sizes. The tapered and list modes are only available in the Pro version of the kit. We'll go over all the settings in basic mode and then look at tapered and list afterward. First, we'll click on the icon to open the Multi-Gem Prongs tool window. Then we'll click on the Set Gems button and select the gems that we would like to apply the prongs to, and then press enter. I usually like to set the height first, so I'll rotate the gems so I can see one of the gems kind of from the side view, and then I'll adjust the height with the prong height slider. You can set the height to whatever you want, but it kind of depends on what you're doing. Are you making a model for rendering, or are you making a model for production? So you'll make shorter prongs if you're making them for the render, but you would make taller prongs if you're making the model for production. And if you're making it for production, I usually like to set the height so that the base of the rounded cap is level with the top of the gemstone. However, how tall you make the prongs is really up to the preference of the jeweler who will be setting the gems. Then we can adjust the other settings. For instance, we can adjust the depth with the depth slider. We can adjust the size with the size slider. And we can adjust the amount of overlap with the overlap slider. Now we'll look at the other settings, the ones in the third section of the window. So this is the tilt angle. And this is the rotation angle. This is flare. And then finally, you can adjust the fillet. Then in the last section, we have the prong/lines drop down. You can choose from prongs only, prongs and lines, or lines only. You would use the lines typically if you were wanting to make some kind of custom prongs, and you'll be putting a custom shape, like maybe you want square prongs instead of round prongs. And you can use the lines to create those custom prongs. And then finally we have the flip prong setting, and that is if the prongs are upside down for some reason, you can use flip prongs to turn them right side up. Finally, the last setting we need to look at is the in-prong method. So by default, it's going to be set to line, which is what you're seeing right now. And you're usually either going to use line or arc. And so this is what arc looks like. But there are also three averages, which are averages between those two extremes. And you can choose any one of them that best fits your project. And it is possible that none of them will quite work for you, and you'll have to pick the one that's closest to what you need and then make manual adjustments to some of the prongs afterward. I'm just going to adjust the depth of the prongs a little bit more to bring them so that the bottoms of the prongs are inside the sizing circle. Now once you're happy with the prongs, you can go ahead and click on Finalize. And then I'll just trim these with the sizing circle. All right, so there are our finished prongs. Now we'll take a look at tapered and list. So if you have tapered gems, you'll probably want to set the mode to tapered, and that will give you two sliders to control the size of the prongs, one for the start size and one for the end size. And you can adjust those until you get them like you want. And then click Finalize, and now we have tapered prongs for our tapered gems. If you use the list mode to make the gems, you might want to use the list mode to make the prongs. So here we'll set it to list, and then we'll create a set of, or a list of prong sizes. I'm using 0.8, 0.8, 0.8, and then 0.7. And remember that the final prong size will repeat all the way until the last gem is reached. So the 0.7 will repeat over the last few gems. Again, once you're happy with it, click Finalize, and now we have the prongs for our list of gems. To be clear, just because you used list mode to create the gems doesn't mean you have to use list mode to create the prongs. So here I'm taking the same gems and I'm creating the prongs again, but this time I'm using the basic mode, and I'm just going to set a size that will work for all the gems. So 0.75 will probably work for all the gems, and we'll go ahead and finalize that. So we could do this as well, but you may prefer to use list mode in some cases. All right, and that is how you use the Multi-Gem Prong tool that comes with the jewelry kit that I make for Rhino.